Hi, everybody. Just give us a few moments. Kristen is signing on now.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I apologize for being a little bit late. Zoom wouldn't let me in. I was struggling with Zoom. I was cursing at Zoom. I was doing everything, and Zoom would not let me into the meeting. So finally, they did. So let's see if we can get started. Now, the way that I always feel about this is that every minute counts. When you're studying, like this time together is really precious. So let's see if we can get started right away and dive right in. What I'd like to ask you, I have two questions. I'd like to know if people are studying for the school test or the state test or both. And I'd also like to know if anybody feels there's anything in particular that you'd like me to cover. Like a lot of people say, oh, I want you to cover the math, or I want you to cover the environmental stuff, or the agency stuff, or something like that. Oh, wow, congratulations. This fellow is taking the state test tomorrow. The math. Okay, I usually get a lot of requests for math. All right, tell you what, I think that it might be a wise idea to look at the type of math that we have on the school test, because generally speaking, I think you're going to find that the school test is harder than the state test. And it's not because we want it to be, it's because of regulations by Department of State. So what you will find challenging about the state test usually is the language. Uh, so let's try. I'm going to give you a question that is on both the school test and the state test. Okay? Yeah, everybody seems to be saying both, except one fellow who's taking the state exam tomorrow. Okay, well, the question I'm giving you is on both the school test and the state test. A building has 12,800 rentable square feet, 10,000 of which are considered usable. What is the efficiency factor. Do people remember what the efficiency factor is? Let me, in case you've never been with me before, what I do is I put sample questions into the chat, sample questions from the school test and the state test, and I put explanations and information into the chat. Then at the end of the class tonight, I will email the chat to everybody who was in the class, and you'll have all this information to study from. Okay? So an office has rentable square feet, which, okay, very good, which is the whole thing, including stairs, bathrooms, uh, halls, lobby, elevator, that kind of junk, closets, okay? The tenant has to pay for everything. Rentable square feet is also called gross square feet. Okay, but if you're a tenant, like you say to yourself, well, I know I have to pay for the whole thing, but how much of it can I use? So usable is the square feet the tenant can use for their business, like offices, conference rooms, waiting rooms, lunchroom, that kind of stuff. Efficiency factor is the percent of the space that is usable. Okay, so let's go back to the question. The building has 12,800 rentable square feet and 10,000 usable square feet. What's the efficiency factor? So all we do is we say 10,000 usable divided by 12,800 rentable equals, and by the way, do as I say, not as I do. Do not use a calculator like this, okay? This is a scientific calculator. It's got cosines and logarithms and tangents and future values and present values and all kinds of matrices. It's got all kinds of freaking stuff on it. If you try to bring something like this to the test, they will take it away. What you need is an El Cheapo calculator from the dollar store. Okay, so don't use one like mine. Okay, so 10,000 divided by 12,800 is 78%. So it's 78% efficiency factor. What if they asked me the loss factor, the amount I can't use for business? So that would be like, the closets and the bathrooms and stuff. Thank you. Closets and bathrooms and stuff. So all I would do is I would say 100% rentable minus 78% efficiency equals 22% loss factor. Okay? Pretty easy, right? I think you're going to find that with these math questions, they are not difficult in terms of the arithmetic. The arithmetic is multiplication, division. Let me write that for you. On both tests, on both school and state tests. The math is nothing more complicated than multiplication, division, fractions, and percents. It's the only thing you need to know. And I actually called Department of Education and I found out that that's fourth grade math in New York State. Okay, so the next one that we're going to do, sometimes you will see math questions that don't have any numbers. And they will be questions about math, but they don't have any numbers in them. So here's an example. Which statement does an investor use to estimate and project a property's future income potential? So let's see what we got here. I'm going to give you choices. Thank you, Michelle. See, that's, you're doing really well when you can answer the question without even having choices. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. Okay. Is it the balance sheet? Oh, thank you, Carrie. Is it the balance sheet, the operating statement, the pro forma, or the rent roll? Which statement does an investor use? See, this one is a good question. It's on both the school test and the state test. And it's a good question because it has lots of clues in it. Because when they say estimate, project, future, potential, all these are future words. And the operating document that predicts the future is the pro forma. Okay? Now, while we're on the subject, they have another question that you will see on the state test. And it is, what is used to estimate a property's value in past, present, and future? Now, we got to know it's not the pro forma because the pro forma is the future. And they're talking about past, present, and future. So let me see if I can give you some choices, okay? So your choices are going to be cash on cash return, discounted cash flow analysis, pro forma, or appraisal. What's the answer? Now, there are some people who might not have taken the commercial chapter yet. So if you haven't taken, thank you, Michelle. If you haven't taken that chapter yet, you're off the hook. Now, my attitude about these review sessions is that I don't think it matters whether you have taken all 19 chapters or whether you have taken only one chapter. I don't think it matters because my attitude has always been, you got to learn the stuff. So it doesn't matter if you learn it now or you learn it later. Doesn't matter when you learn it, you got to learn it. So we're all doing the same thing. So no problem. If you haven't taken that particular chapter, you can't answer those particular questions, but you'll learn it right now. So discounted cash flow analysis, absolutely right. What discounted cash flow analysis does is it estimates the time value of money. Okay, because like when I was a little kid, you could actually buy a house. You could buy a house like in Levittown for like $6,000 when I was a little kid. So like money has time value. Uh, Money has time value partly because of inflation, partly because of interest rates, because money earns interest, and partly because of competing investments and things like that. All right. Am I talking too fast? Because I told you I think that the time is so valuable here. Now, you are going to find that the school test and the state test are very similar. And we do that on purpose because every school in the state is going to try to make their test as much like the state test as possible, because we want to follow what our bosses are doing. We want to do what our bosses tell us to do. So if Department of State thinks that something is important to put on the test, then it's got to be important for us to put it on our test. So we try to follow the state as much as possible. So I'm about to give you another math question it's from the school test, but you'll see it on the state test as well. Different numbers, but you'll see it on the state test. If a home's market value is $300,000 and community's uniform assessment is $60,000, what is assessed value? And I'm about to give you choices. Oh, okay. So this person is giving me his email address so that I can send the transcript at the end of the class. If everybody would like to do that now, why don't you? Can everybody please give me your email address so that I can mail you this study transcript when we're done? See, what happens to me is when I get teaching, I don't watch the clock. I think it's unethical for teachers to watch the clock. I think teachers should give their full attention to you. And so what happens is I don't watch the clock and I lose track of time and I just keep going, going, going. And sometimes the students leave. So, they have to, they have kids or they have to, eat dinner or something like that. So, it's good for me to get all the email addresses at the beginning of the class rather than the end, so that way I'm sure I get everybody. Okay. All right, let's see if we can answer this question. All right. So the whole idea about this, in case you haven't taken the real estate tax chapter yet, is that we pay we pay income tax to federal and state governments. We pay real property tax, and the income tax is on our salary. So we pay income tax on our salary to federal and state governments. We pay real property tax on the value of our buildings to our local government. So for example, I live in New York City, so I pay real property tax to New York City. In New York State, we don't pay tax, real property tax. Based on the market value of our real estate. We pay tax based on the assessed value of our real estate, which is a percent of market value. I love this because it lowers my tax. Because think about it for a minute. Would you rather pay tax on $300,000, which is the market value of the house in this question, or would you rather pay it on 60% of 300,000, right? You'd much rather pay on 60% of the value than 100% of the value. So all we have to do to find the assessment rate is we say 300,000 market value times 60% assessment rate. Now, you will notice in the question, they use some kind of weird language, and they say the community's uniform assessment. What they mean by that is that, like, pretend you're in New York City, okay? In New York City, all houses have to have the same assessment rate. All co-ops and condos have to have the same assessment rate. All offices have to have the same assessment rate. See what I'm saying? So when they say uniform, it means that all buildings in a certain category have to have the same rate. All right, so we're going to say 300,000 times 60% assessment rate. And I think, once again, Michelle has it right, but I'm going to check my calculator just in case. And the answer is indeed 180,000. So we know that we would much rather pay tax on 180,000 than on 300,000. Now, let's take this very same question. I'm going to copy the question again. We're going to take this very same question and we're just going to add something to it. Okay, if the home's market value is 300,000 and community's uniform assessment is 60% and tax is 5%, what is annual tax? So now I think we're in third grade. Because they learn multiplication in third grade, I'm told. So we're going to say 300,000 market value
Oh, I
times
won.
60%.
Cheated.
Forgive me, let me fix this.
It's red staggering select board. Red staggering. I won.
There we go. Okay, we had some background noise and I just stopped the background noise. But if anybody wants to say anything, all you have to do is unmute yourself and you can say anything you like. So 300,000 market value times 60% assessment rate times 5% tax rate equals, so all we have to do is multiply this out and see if you got the same thing I did. I got $9,000. Thank you. Everybody else got 9,000 also. Annual tax. There you go. Okay. So it's really easy as long as you just understand why you're doing it. Now, what I would like to do with you is I would like to give you a question that's kind of hard. It's on the state test. And if you took the commercial chapter with me, you know about cash on cash return. But a lot of people find it difficult, so I think I should really go through it. Do you agree with me? Okay, now on the state test, I'm going to give you the question that you're going to see on the state test. Okay, Sam has 500,000 to invest in a building. He wants to buy a building for 2 million. Before tax cash flow is 15,000 per month. If Sam buys the building, what will be his cash on cash return? Now, this isn't hard. As we said earlier, this is fourth grade math. What makes it hard is understanding why you're doing it. Okay, so Sam's got $500,000 to invest, and he doesn't have to buy a building. He could buy Bitcoin, or he could invest in venture capital, or he could buy foreign exchange, or he could buy mutual funds, or he could invest in his cousin Jan's motorcycle business. So, there's a lot of things he could do with his money. So Sam is going to try to figure out, well, if I put $500,000 cash in, how much cash am I going to get back? What's my cash return every single year? And he's going to choose the investment where he gets the most money back each year. Now, if it's a building, he's going to look at the seller's operating statement. And who's going to give him the seller's operating statement? You. All right. Because when a person buys a commercial building, the owner of the building will share with them the income and expenses for the last year, and that's on the operating statement. And so the owner will give a copy of his last year's, 2024 operating statement to you, and you will give it to Sam, the buyer. Okay. So that's how Sam is going to know what the cash return is, because he's going to see how much money the building made last year. It's probably going to make about the same this year. How the fund performed last year. If he wants to buy Jan's motorcycle business, he says, Jan, I want to see your operating statement for last year, and so forth. All right, so Sam is trying to see which investment will give him cash income compared to his 500,000 investment. Sam gets a copy of the owner's operating statement for last year and sees the income and expenses. Now we know that the most important number on an operating statement is what? Anybody know? NOI, net operating income. So what happens is, I think I even have a slide about that, where when you work in commercial real estate. You call somebody on the phone and you say, hi, I'm marketing a building. And they don't go like, what's your name? They don't go like, what's the price? They go, what's the NOI? What's the NOI? What's the NOI? It's the only thing they want to know. Because when they ask, what is the NOI? They're asking, if I buy this building, how much money will I make? That's the one thing they want to know. Now, NOI is the bottom line of how much money the building made for the owner last year. Now, on an operating statement, there are lots of kinds of income. There's gross income, there's effective income, there's potential income, there's after-tax income, etc., etc. NOI is the most important.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I hope this doesn't sound stupid, but what does effective income mean?
When they talk about gross income, sometimes they'll just be talking about, by the way, that's not a stupid question at all. That's a great question.
Thank you.
They might be talking about like how much income the owner makes from renting out the units. Like if it's an office building, how much does the owner make from renting out the offices? But the effective is going to be, well, maybe he has other kinds of income. Like maybe he's got vending machines in the building, or maybe he's got solar panels on the roof, or something like that. So sometimes there are little adjustments, or maybe he has some tenants that are like in there illegally and he has to evict them because they're not paying rent. So he has to subtract his loss from the tenants who don't pay. So there's gross income, but then they make adjustments and it becomes effective gross.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that means, so like you said, that's like kind of the bottom line, the effective, after you take out the profit or the losses?
Well, no, it's the bottom line for the income, but then you got to subtract the expenses.
Okay.
And when you subtract the expenses, then you get net operating income.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so for this equation, Sam is going to use a different kind of income, which is before tax cash flow income. The reason is that BTCF, before tax cash flow, includes the cost of Sam's mortgage. Okay, so here's the equation. The equation is the annual, we'll see first. Here's what we have to do first, unfortunately. They gave us the before tax cash flow monthly, which is a little trick that they love to do. So unfortunately, what we have to do is figure it out, figure out what it is annually, and then we can do the equation. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 15,000 by 12 months, and what do we get? Thank you, 180,000. Okay, so 15,000 monthly before tax cash flow times 12 months equals 180,000 annual. Because Sam isn't trying to figure out how much he's going to make per month. He's trying to figure out how much he's going to make per year with the building. Now that we know the annual before tax cash flow, now we can get the answer. So what we're going to say is we're going to take the before tax cash flow, we're going to divide by Sam's $500,000 investment. So his investment is probably going to be mostly down payment and closing costs. Okay, so sometimes they will call the total cash invested. Sometimes they might call it down payment. You can kind of think they're the same. All right, so here we go. 100,000 before tax cash flow divided by 500,000 total cash invested equals 0.36, which equals 36%. So he has a 36% cash on cash return. Every year he's getting 36% of his original investment back. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, I think I missed something. Okay, if possible, can you repeat that one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
What Sam is trying to do is he's trying to find out, of all the choices that he has for investments, which one is he going to get the most income from each year? That's what he's trying to figure out. Okay, so he wants to compare the income that the building makes with his $500,000 that he's investing. So what he does is he's going to convert it to a percentage. So he says, okay, $180,000 income divided by my $500,000 investment is 36%. So each year I'm going to get 36% of my money back. And this person pointed out that yes, Sam would recover his 500,000 investment in less than 3 years, which is pretty gosh darn good. Pretty gosh darn amazing. Yeah, recover is a better word.
Thank
Okay.
you.
But did I say it better that time? I don't like to move on until everybody feels that I explained it well enough. Okay, now there is a question on the test. It doesn't have any numbers. They ask you for equations. So here's the question. What are you deriving? And you're not really deriving, it's a misuse of the word, but that's what they say. What are you deriving when you divide before tax cash flow by total amount invested to buy a building? Okay, and here are your choices. What's the answer? What are you deriving when you divide before tax cash flow by total amount invested to buy a building? Cash on cash return is correct. I'm going to give you another math question. Doesn't have any numbers in it. What do you get when you take a building's gross income and deduct annual operating expenses? What do you get when you take a building's gross income and deduct annual operating expenses? Potential gross income, vacancy loss, net operating income, or variable expenses? Thank you. Answer is C. Answer is C, NOI. You know what? I'm going to do one more math question and then maybe we'll move on to some other stuff. Is that good? Now, I have a math question that's always on both the school test and the state test. So let's try it. Sam and Pam are married. They sell their home for a profit. They sell their home where they have lived for 20 years for a profit of $375,000. How much of their profit is taxable on their income tax? Anybody know? You don't even need a calculator for this. Thank you. That is true. The answer is that none of it is taxable. $0 of their capital gains profit is taxable. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Okay, the reason is section 121 of a Taxpayer Relief Act, which I believe was 1996, if I'm not mistaken. Taxpayer relief, it was under President Clinton. Okay, and the idea was that what would happen is you would get like some nice old lady who, oh, you're on the tax chapter now. Okay, good. You would get some nice old lady who buys a house in 1970 for $50,000, which you could easily do, right? She buys a house for $50,000 in 1970. And then she gets old and she wants to sell the house. So she goes and she sells the house for $500,000, which is entirely possible, right? That means her profit is $450,000. This old lady is going to get killed on real estate tax. Not real estate tax, capital gains tax. She's going to get killed on capital gains tax from the IRS. So in order to relieve that pressure on the nice old lady, what they do is they say, well, if you're married, the first $500,000 of capital gains when you sell your home is not taxed. Okay, so this law says that if you sell your home and you are married, the first 500,000 of, well, I'm going to say it a different way. And you are married, the profit below 500,000 is not taxed for capital gains tax. If you are single, it's below 250,000. So you don't need a calculator for this because Sam and Pam's 375,000 capital gains is less than 500,000. So no tax. Now pretend their capital gains profit was 510,000. Then they would have to pay, thank you, they would have to pay capital gains tax on 10,000 of it. Now, I don't know how much their tax would be because I don't know their tax bracket. It might be 15%, it might be 20%, like we don't know. Okay, if Sam and Pam are really poor, it might be 0%, like if they're below the poverty line and stuff. Okay, so does that make sense to everyone? Because I promise you that's on both the school test and the state test. All right, now I'm going to tell you something. For legal reasons, I had to take the test a year ago. I took it February 6th of 2024. And well, I'll tell you why I had to take it. I have 2 licenses, and during the pandemic, I wasn't really using my licenses too much. So I said, well, why should I pay $185 for a license that I'm not using? So I kept one license throughout the pandemic, but the other one I let it go. So when the pandemic ended and I wanted to get my license back, if you let your license, and you need to know this, okay? If you let your license, I'm going to put it in the notes. If you do not renew your license for more than 2 years, New York State makes you take the state test again. So you don't have to take the whole course again, you just have to take the state test. So if I wanted to get my license back, I had to take the state test. So I was thrilled because I wasn't really worried about passing the test. What I was worried about was memorizing the test. So I went downtown, I took all 90 minutes, I memorized the test, I ran out of there, I had a notebook, and I did a brain dump, and I wrote down every single question that I could remember on the test. All right, so that's one way that I know what's on the state test. Now, what happened on the state test that was really interesting is they had like 15 fair housing questions. I couldn't believe it. because there's been a lot of pressure from the state government to make sure that we understand fair housing, because there's two main reasons that brokers get their licenses, brokers and salespersons get their licenses taken away in New York State. And that's violation of fair housing and violation of agency. So they want to be darn sure that we understand fair housing and agency. So do you agree with me? It might be nice to do a few fair housing questions.
Yes.
All right. Oh,
I have a question
yes,
about
yes.
the 2-year license thing. So I remember in like one of the earlier chapters, you had said basically it's not a good idea to get your to renew your license right before the time. You I believe you said you asked the student what were you doing for 2 years. So basically, if you wanted to, like say you get your license and then you could renew like a month later and it would like continue like for the next 2 years, or how does that work?
Yeah. See, the whole idea, your name is Asia, right?
Yes,
I love that name. That's so great.
thank you.
Uh, the whole idea is that my license, for example, expires in July. I've already done my continuing ed. Now, I didn't tell Department of State that I've done my continuing ed. I'm going to tell them on July 18th when my license expires. But
Uh-huh.
I've already done it. And the reason I've already done it is that it's just my personality. I don't like to do things at the last minute.
Right.
So some people think, and they're mistaken, but they think that you're supposed to wait 2 years and then renew your license. And you don't wait 2 years, you have 2 years. So anytime during those 2 years, if you have a little time, you can renew your license. Um, but you don't, like you do your continuing ed, but you don't actually go to Department of State website and renew it until it expires.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, I am so neurotic about that. I've already done my continuing ed. Now, I smiled when I saw this question, and the reason why is because this question, I don't know why they love this question so much. It is always, 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 did I say always, on both the school and the state test. So which two groups were protected in 1988? Age and disability, disability and family status or familial status, marriage and disability, or religion and national origin. I'm surprised that people don't remember because I have such a funny, silly way of remembering. Okay, the answer is B. Answer is B. Disabled and family status. Family status does not mean marriage. Marriage is protected by New York State, not the federal government. It means kids. In other words, a landlord can't say, like, you can't live here because you have too many kids, or you can't live here because you don't have enough kids, or something like that. Okay? So the reason that I'm surprised that people don't remember is because of my silly way to remember. I'm going to tell you my silly way to remember this. So I'll type it up for you. Disabled people, wheelchairs. Little kids, strollers. 1988, looks like wheels? So 1968 Fair Housing Act protected. Well, see, Asia, what's so funny about it is that usually people remember because it's so goofy and like stupid. But I find that like stupid things, like you remember them. I don't know if it's silly and stupid, people remember it if it's funny. So uh people usually remember it because of that little thing that I made up.
Sorry, I had a lot of background noise, so I didn't want to unmute it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. The eight, the eight, 88 has four wheels.
Yeah.
The stroller has four wheels. The wheelchair has four wheels. It's very smart.
The stroller has four wheels.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1968 Fair Housing Act protected religion and national origin. Now, I'm curious, I have a way to remember that one also. Okay. Who was president in the 1960s? Can anybody name a president from the 1960s? JFK. Okay. Kennedy is usually the one that people remember the most. Okay. So yeah, Johnson was president too. We actually had four presidents in the 1960s. We had Eisenhower for a couple months. Um, we had Eisenhower. We had Kennedy. We had Johnson and we had Nixon. But the one everybody remembers is Kennedy, right? So the president from the 1960s that everybody remembers was Kennedy. Kennedy was the first Irish Catholic president we ever had. So, right after Kennedy gets killed, after Kennedy died, we had a law protecting national origin and religion, Irish Catholic. Okay, so if you can remember that Kennedy was in the 60s and he was Irish Catholic, then you can remember that national origin and religion were protected in the 1960s. What was the first fair housing law? And tell me if you want me, do you want me to give you choices? I'll give you choices. Sherman Act, Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act. See, what they do on the test is they don't give you the date. So they just say Civil Rights Act. They don't tell you the date. So is it the first law ever? Okay, the first fair housing law ever. Was it Sherman Act, Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, or Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act? Okay, so it looks like everybody got it right. The answer is Civil Rights Act. of, which was in 1866. Okay, and Sherman Act has nothing to do with fair housing. It's actually called the Sherman Antitrust Act. And it has nothing to do with fair housing. It has to do with business. Statute of frauds is for contracts. Once again, nothing to do with fair housing. So what they do on the test is they will ask you a question like this. Channeling home seekers to a particular neighborhood based on their race or religion is called. Okay, so our choices. Now, what they do is they always give you the choices of steering, blockbusting, and redlining. Okay, but then they need another one. So D will probably be something like antitrust. Okay, so what's the answer? Channeling is another word. Thank you. Channeling is another word for steering. So the answer is A, steering. Channeling is another word for steering. Now, whoops, I said steering. I meant steering. Don't worry, I fix those kind of mistakes when I send you the transcript. Now, they need a fourth choice. So they will offer antitrust, price fixing, boycott. And those are all part of Sherman Antitrust Act and have nothing to do with fair housing. Okay, I've got one for you. It's another fair housing question, and I'm going to tell you the truth, I got this one wrong. Which law represented the first attempt by the federal government to require fair lending in mortgages? And your choices are okay. Anybody else want to guess? Okay. Answer, Michelle is absolutely right. Answer is the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Now, I got it wrong. I guessed Civil Rights Act, but I'm going to tell you why I was wrong. I have read Civil Rights Act, and Civil Rights Act says that people have equal rights in real estate and personal property. Like in those days, what would personal property be? Like, wagons and horses and farm tools and junk like that, right? That would be furniture. That would be personal property back in those days. Okay, so everybody has equal rights in real property and personal property, regardless of race or previous condition of servitude. Previous condition of servitude means they used to be a slave. Okay, so the Civil War ended slavery. The Civil War ended 1865, so we have the first fair housing law in 1866, like 1 year later. Okay, so if you read that law, it says that everybody, regardless of race or previous condition, has the right to sell, buy, rent, deed, bequeath, grant, sue, inherit, give evidence. Like they list like every freaking thing, build, every freaking thing you can do with real estate. Farm, they list it. Okay? But they don't mention banks. So Civil Rights Act of 1866 never mentions banks or mortgages. Okay. Are people appreciating the fair housing questions? Because we can go on to something else if you want to. I'm here for you. Keep going with the fair housing? Okay. Who would be most likely to get an exemption to fair housing law? Who would be most likely to get an exemption? Well, Michelle, you are correct, but it's not one of the choices. Okay. Who would be most likely to get an exemption to fair housing law? Real estate salesperson, landlord, person looking for roommate, or a website? Absolutely correct. Answer is C. Answer is C, the roommates. Okay, so, because let me give you an example. Let's pretend I'm looking for a roommate. Okay? It's illegal for a landlord to discriminate on the basis of a person's gender. Like he can't say, I don't rent to women or I don't rent to men or something like that. He can't do that. All right. But if I'm looking for a roommate, I am allowed to say I want a female roommate. What if I say, like, I don't want to have a female roommate who has like a teenage son. I mean, I'm going to be sharing my living room, my kitchen, my bathroom, everything like that. I would just feel uncomfortable, having a roommate who had like, a teenage boy. So I could also say, I want a roommate with no kids. That violates family status, doesn't it? But it's roommates. So the federal government goes out of their way. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, they go out of their way to interpret Fair Housing Act, and they say that Fair Housing Act doesn't apply to people looking to share their own home. It doesn't apply in terms of gender and family status. Now, we are not talking about a two-family house with the owner living in one of the units. We're not talking about that right now. I mean, I appreciate that Michelle brought that up, but that's not one of the choices on the test. When they talk about a roommate, they mean somebody sharing your apartment. They're living in your same kitchen, your same bathroom, your same living room, your same dining room, same keys to your apartment, everything. Okay? Yes, but there are no, thank you, no exemptions ever for race. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's our next question. Which law has an exemption that allows discrimination for race in some limited cases? What's the answer? No freaking law. That's the answer. All right, that one's always on the test. Let me see what I can do with fair housing. I'm checking the school test to see if there are any fair housing questions. Ah, okay. Remember the Supreme Court decisions? Anybody remember Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Jones versus Mayer? What law did Mr. and Mrs. Jones claim that the Mayer Company violated? So that would be the 1968 Supreme Court case of Jones versus Mayer. I'm giving you choices. Okay. Did Mr. and Mrs. Jones say that they violated 1866 Civil Rights Act, 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act, or 1988 amendment? What's the answer? Thank you. Answer is A. The Mayer Company, they were builders. They were home builders who refused to sell a house to Mr. and Mrs. Jones because of race. The case went to Supreme Court. What happened in Supreme Court? And the Joneses won. Okay. Okay, this one is kind of hard. This is the school test. It may also be on the state. It may also be on the state. What is protected by New York City or other local law? So like that would be the law in like Buffalo or Plattsburgh or someplace. Okay. So what is protected by local law but not by New York State law? Would it be lawful job, which they sometimes call lawful occupation, domestic violence victim, lawful source of income, or national origin? Anybody know the answer? See, what this requires you to do is it doesn't require you to know the laws in New York City or the laws in Rochester or Elmira or someplace. It requires you to know what the state laws are. So of these four, three of them are protected by New York State. Does anybody know which three are protected by the state and which ones are not protected by the state? So they would be protected by local government? All right, let's do it. New York State protects a domestic violence victim, lawful source of income. I'm told that might change, but for now it's still in place. And national origin. They do not yet protect lawful occupation. Now, sometimes people say, and they're right, they say, well, don't you get your income from your occupation? Like, what's the difference? Okay, I'll tell you what the difference is. That's why co-ops can say no to musicians. And there are lots of musicians who got turned down from co-ops like Cher and Madonna and people like that get turned down for co-ops because they're scared that they're going to make noise or that they might attract too many fans outside. Okay, let me talk about the difference, okay? So lawful source of income means that housing providers, what's a housing provider? A housing provider is a landlord, a co-op or condo, a property manager, or a real estate licensee like us. Cannot discriminate against someone looking for a home because of where they get their money from. It could be alimony, the lottery, a court settlement, a pension, a trust fund, Section 8. You get the idea. Okay? Lawful occupation means housing providers can't discriminate because of a person's job. Landlords usually avoid musicians, dancers, cops and lawyers, because they know the law. And real estate brokers. Yeah, I have some last minute tips about the state test, and this will be helpful not just to Thomas, who's taking the test tomorrow, but also to everybody, I think. Okay. On the test, they concentrate all the math questions at the end. So what happens is you're going through the test and you la-dee-da, I got plenty of time. And then you get to the last page, test is given on paper. You get to the last page and whoa, there's like 3 math questions on the last page. So the math questions obviously take longer than the other kinds of questions. So you want to, like what a lot of people do is they go to the last page first and do the math questions first, and then they go back. Now, another thing too, no, it's not on computer. And I believe the reason why is that New York State believes that paper is more secure because like computers can be hacked. And like they're terrified that somebody could go in and hack their computers and access the tests and then start selling the tests all over the state. So they do it on computer. Now, when you go there, they've got all these proctors, and the proctors are like very serious. They're very severe. And like I went there and I almost got kicked out of the test because what happened was, like, I think you already know my personality a little bit. Like I'm the person who gets insurance on my insurance. So I went there and I took 3 calculators because I thought, well, what if one of my calculators fails? Then I'll have 2 backups. So I had 3 calculators. There was a lady there who didn't bring a calculator at all. So before the test, she asked me if she could borrow one of mine, and I go, sure. So I finished the test. I was getting up to leave, and she says to me, do you want your calculator back? I'm like, no, no. She goes, no, really, do you want your calculator back? And I'm like, no, no, no. The proctor comes over. She goes, you can't talk to people in the test. And she was getting ready to kick me out. I didn't say a word, but the lady was talking to me. So they are very, very strict. You can't use your watch as a calculator. You can't use your phone as a calculator. If you bring, a fancy calculator, like I showed you before, if you bring a fancy calculator, they'll take it away. If you try to use your phone or your watch, they'll kick you out. Okay. And you can't talk to anybody or like look at anybody cross-eyed. Another thing I would suggest is that, what you want to do is if you see a question and you have absolutely no idea what the answer is, then you rule out the stupid ones, okay? Because you have 4 possible answers, okay? So tend to second guess yourself. Yeah, they say your first instinct is usually right. But if you have 4 choices and you have no idea what they are, okay, you rule out, you have a 25, if you totally guess, you have a 25% chance of getting it right. You rule out one, now you have a 33% chance of getting it right. You rule out another one, now you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right if you're completely guessing. So it's a really good idea to try to get rid of the stupid ones because that increases your chances of getting it right. Okay. But if you're totally have no idea, all 4 answers look good to you, the most common answer on the test, I don't know why, is C. Now, when I took the test in February, there's like 6 or 8 different versions of the test, so you might not have the same version that I did. But when I took the test, there was a point in the test where there were 5 questions in a row where C was the answer. And I said, that's impossible. But I checked it, double checked it, triple checked it. And it was all the stuff I teach every day. So obviously I knew the answers. They just really freaking like C. Now, I had a student who ran out of time on the test. And he still had 10 questions to go when time was up. So what he did is he just answered C to all of them, and he passed. Okay, so try to reason it out. But if you run out of time or have absolutely no idea, choose C. Okay, another tip that I would have for you is that the language is really weird on the state test. Like, let me see if I can give you an example, okay? Thomas, are you asking me because you have to leave? I'm going to give you an example of how weird the language is on the test. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So someone else is asking the question. I guess it's Karen. If you have to leave, I understand, but I want to answer your question for you. Okay, get a load of this. The right to deviate due to a special hardship from the use of land prescribed by an existing zoning ordinance can be accomplished by applying for which one of the following? Huh? Well, the answer is variance, but the question is really asking, what do you apply for to get an exception to zoning law because the law is hurting you financially? Okay, so that's absolutely right. The answer is a variance. A variance is a zoning change, which is granted because of financial hardship. Whenever you see the word hardship, think variance, think zoning variance. Okay? I'm going to find you another one. Now they have the state has certain mannerisms that, like language mannerisms, that you just have to be prepared for. That are odd. For example, they start, yes, both the school and the state test are multiple choice. They start a question with, according to New York State law, ... Everything's according to New York State law. The test is about New York State law. Like, that's so unnecessary. But they stick it in. It's just something that they do. And then they say, what is it known as? Like, not what is it or what's it called? What's it known as? And then, like, if I were writing the test, I would say, well, okay, has everybody heard I'm going to give you the case of Mrs. Davis, all right? When you go to take the state test, you are going to see Mrs. Davis on the test, and you're going to think of me and you're going to laugh. All right, where's Mrs. Davis? Let me find her. Okay, here she is. Mrs. Davis purchased the property and was granted the right to cross an adjacent driveway to reach a beach. Okay, and then they go, which of the following does Mrs. Davis have? Why don't they just say, what does Mrs. Davis have? What's this which of the following? Like, what does she have? They have to always overcomplicate things. The state test is very verbose. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, I'm going to give you choices. Do I have any brokerage interview tips? Yes, I do. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Variance, encroachment, easement and gross, or easement appurtenant. What does Mrs. Davis have? Thank you, Mrs. Very good. Mrs. Davis has D, an easement appurtenant. Now, we know that an easement, if you took chapter 3, an easement means someone else legally can use your real estate. So if you live next door to Mrs. Davis, she's allowed to walk over your land. She's allowed to use your real estate. Okay. An easement in gross is for government or utility, like Con Ed or Verizon or Spectrum or somebody like that. Easement appurtenant is for private people, like Mrs. Davis. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, so the question was about interviews. I'm glad you asked me that question because it surprises me that there are some questions that people don't ask in interviews. The first thing I would say about interviews is try to meet as many brokers as possible, because most brokers will offer you a job like right in your first meeting. But it's different because if you took chapter 2, which talks about independent contractors compared to employees, if you took chapter 2, you know that if you're an independent contractor, the broker doesn't have to pay you unless you earn a commission. So hiring you is free. If they hire you as an employee, they have to pay you for every hour that you work there. But hiring an independent contractor is free. So brokers will offer a job to every single person they meet. Because if the person does well, they make money. If the person doesn't do well, they haven't lost any money. Now, you should ask, does everybody know Deb? I think everybody knows Deb. She's our customer service lady. Okay. You can ask Deb about referrals because I know that yeah, Deb is great. We have relationships with some of the brokerages, like some of the better brokerages, like some brokerages aren't that good, but we have relationships with some of the better brokerages that are recruiting. And so she might be able to give you contact info for some of the brokerages. So ask Deb about brokerages that RELNY has a relationship with who are recruiting salespersons. Okay, now what happens that I think is kind of odd is that people go to meet with a broker and they forget to ask, how much money do I make if I work for you? It's like the most obvious question and people forget to ask. So when you meet with a broker, an important question is, when I earn a commission, what is the split? In other words, if I earn a commission for, let's say, $10,000, how much do I get and how much does the broker keep? And some students say, well, why does the broker keep money? Well, because the broker is paying for the office and the lights and the heat and the phones and the electricity, and they're paying for you to be trained. They're supervising you. They're helping you, like they're giving you a desk. They're helping you do your deals. So the broker should be paid for all those services. So the broker keeps a percent. The broker keeps a percent of salesperson's commissions, called a split. Now, most firms start at 50-50, 50%, 50%. So if you earned $10,000, you would get 5,000 and the broker would get 5,000. But some firms do 60-30, where the salesperson gets 60% and the broker keeps 30%. Some firms give salesperson 100% of the commission, but salesperson has to pay a flat fee for every deal, like $1,000 for every deal, or a monthly desk fee. And then some brokerages are 30/70, where salesperson only gets 30% and broker keeps 70%. Now that sounds horrible, right? But the next question is, what do I get for my split? How much can I expect to spend to start working in the office? Yeah, that's the next question. I'm getting to that. Okay, so what do I get for my split? Because I'm going to tell you something. I have a broker student who only pays her salesperson's 30%. But she finds them the customers. She finds them the properties. And if the customer puts in an offer, she calls the property manager, who she knows, and she gives them Christmas gifts and stuff, makes sure the deal goes through. She's handing the deals to her salespersons on a silver platter. I'll do that for 30%. Okay, so the percentage is not what matters. What matters is what you're getting. Okay, so it's not the split percent that matters. It's what you are getting for your split percent. Now, another good question, and don't worry, we're going to go back to the questions after this. I'm just answering her question about brokerages, okay? Another good question. If I join this firm, what expenses do I have to pay? Now, let me give you an example. I was going to join a firm once, right? So I went in my first day and I go, "Hi, I'm here to sign up and join the firm." And they go, "Great, Kristen, that'll be $1,500. I go, $1,500? What are you, crazy? $1,500 for what? All right. So they told me, some firms make you pay for insurance. It's professional insurance. Okay. Professional insurance, membership in a trade association, subscription to a database, and other stuff like training or materials. So it's very important to find out what they expect you to pay. Then the last question, I think, whatever is most important to you. Like maybe training is most important, or a large database of properties is most important. Or if they cover the part of town you want to work in. Or maybe maybe cost of advertising, or let's see, maybe the cost of advertising, or their website, or leads are important to you. So ask about the resources that you care most about. Okay, maybe name recognition is important to you. Maybe you want to work for a company that everybody's heard of instead of a company that people haven't heard of. Okay, I think I've answered this, so I think maybe we should go back to the questions. I just looked at the time. It's 7:50, so do you agree you want to work till 8 and then we'll knock off? Because I know people want to go get a life. Is that good? Okay. All right, so let's do some more. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and give you a couple of questions from the state test that I think are worded really strangely so that you can get an idea of how the test is worded. Which one of the following types of insurance policies? Can't they just say which insurance policy? Right? Which one of the following types of insurance policies would protect the holder from defects in the evidence of the right to an estate? Huh? What are they asking, right? My dog is having a dream. But then show me your beagle. Yeah, dog dreams are so, can you hear it? She's sitting right here with me, and she's having, in her dreams, she thinks she's White Fang, I'm telling you. Oh, there we go. What a baby. What a little cutie. Thank you. Which insurance? Aw. How many rat terriers do you have? 2? That's wonderful. I've had 2 dogs before also. I think that 2 dogs are good because they entertain each other. Which insurance would protect you from defects? Okay, so defects are mistakes or problems in the evidence of the right to an estate. What are they talking about? They're talking about the evidence of ownership, the evidence of right to an estate
There's my doggy.
is the title search. Oh, there's a doggy. What a cutie. What kind of doggy is that?
He's a Morkie, so half Maltese, half Yorkie.
That's why I couldn't tell. Because at first I thought maybe it was a Maltese. And then I said, well, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
he thinks he's a big dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh, that's adorable. Okay, so what I did is I just translated this to English. Okay, and whoever it was who said title insurance, I can't see because it kind of scrolled up, but whoever said title insurance is correct. I'm going to give you choices. Title, flood, casualty, or homeowners. Well, hang on. They're protecting you from mistakes in the title search. Like homeowners, okay, homeowners would be homeowners protects your property from stuff like fire, accidents, theft, hurricanes, etc., lawsuits, etc. This is protecting you from mistakes in the title search. I think I told a story in the class about a guy who was buying a vacant house, and every time he drove by the house, he saw all these tickets on the door, like tickets for things like not shoveling the snow and like not cutting the bushes and stuff like that. And he called the title search company, and the title search company said, don't worry, all the tickets have been paid. So the guy buys the house. He gets a bill from the city for $4,000 in violations. So that's obviously a mistake by the title company. Who pays the $4,000? The title insurance. So title insurance is they pay. Title insurance pays if the title company makes a mistake in the report. Okay, so the answer to this question is title insurance. Okay, I want to give you, I mean, we're kind of running out of time, but I want to give you one more that is worded real strange. Here we go. An existing improvement that was lawfully established but would not be allowed under current zoning regulations is referred to as non-bearing, non-exclusive, non-conforming, or non-conventional. Well, that's correct. The answer is C, but what the heck are they talking about? Yes. Okay, everybody got it right. So does that mean you understand this question? Because I don't understand this question. Okay, so what they mean is that an existing building that was legal under zoning when it was built, but no longer meets the new zoning code is called, and the answer is non-conforming. So I think I have given you, these questions are like three standouts of questions that are really confusing because of the way they are written. All right, so I'm going to give you one more. I have one more minute, so I'm going to give you one more. You can tell once I get started teaching, I just don't want to stop. I'm enjoying it so much being with you. Oh, by the way, the school wants me to mention a couple of things. They want me to ask you, um, did people know that we have a textbook? Because I get a lot of students asking if there's a textbook for this course. And like, we do not require you to have a textbook because what I like about this school, I teach for a lot of different schools. And what I like about this particular school is they don't make you buy any books. They don't make you buy anything. Like you pay your tuition. And then if you want to, you can download the transcripts for free. So like that's the thing that I like about this school. But sometimes students want a textbook. So if you do want a textbook, this school does have a textbook that is sold on Amazon. So RELNY does have a salesperson textbook sold on Amazon. And I think I called it Kristen's New York uh real estate uh salesperson textbook. And it has a picture of me on the cover. The reason that I put a picture of myself on the cover uh of my books is because sometimes people forget my name. Like some people are better with faces than they are with names. So I put a picture of me and my name so that way you're sure that you're getting the RELNY book. Okay. And then another thing. Oh, wow. Thank you. This fellow has the book. Do you know what one of my friends said to me? She goes, Kristen, you look like King Kong on top of the buildings. But anyway, yeah, that's the one. Um, is it working for you? Do you have any comments on it or any ways that I can improve it? Okay. Yeah, it has everything that's in the course, but it has a little bit of extra material as well. It's pretty long. It's like 500 pages. Yeah. How much was it? Do you recall how much it was? I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I wrote it and then I just gave it to the publisher and I never saw it again.
I
All
can't
right.
remember. I paid with the full course. I requested with the course to
I don't
get
remember
one.
how much it is either, but I know it's less than the competing books. Because the guys went out of their way, people at RELNY went out of their way to make sure it was less expensive. Uh, something I want to ask you, which is this is the best school that I've ever taught for. And so I went and reviewed them and I gave them a really good review, but I can only review them once because I'm only one person. So if you like this school, if you would be kind enough to go and give them a good review. And also you can review at Google reviews and Yelp. Uh, And maybe also Groupon. I'm not sure. Okay, so I promised you I was going to do one last question. Okay, so I promised you I was going to do one last question, and this one is always on the test, so that's why it's important. Which one of the following individuals would be exempt from the real estate licensing requirement? In other words, they can do real estate services and they don't need a license. So is it a tenant relocator, the attorney who does not sponsor salespersons, the property manager for several different owners, or the mortgage broker for commercial mortgages? Mortgages other than residential is commercial, right? Thank you. The answer is the attorney. Everybody got it right. You know what I think I'm going to do is what tax questions? You mean income tax or real estate tax? The question that I gave you about the real estate tax math, the real property tax, always on the test. That one I promise you. About the income tax, the one about Sam and Pam and they sell their house for the capital gains of 375. That one's always on. Here's another one. What kind of income do limited partners make? And your choices are active, passive, portfolio, or contractor. Thank you. Answer is passive. There are lots of questions about independent contractors compared to employees. Great. Lots of questions about independent contractors and employees. I'm trying to think. No, I mean, I think we've pretty much done it. I think, you know what happens is after 2 hours, I think your head kind of gets too full. So I think we've got it. Does anybody have anything to say about the school? The school asked me if I would ask people, because they want feedback. So they asked me if at the end of the class I would ask people, to like turn on your camera and your microphone. And I don't mean writing it into the chat. I mean like turning off your camera and microphone and saying it. That's what they want to see. They want to see like what people really think. Hi.
Hello, my name is Rin. I just wanted to say I took the school exam about exactly a week ago, and I scheduled my state exam for tomorrow. And I went in and I did very well. I think you guys just write stuff like so simple, so like you can understand it. I've never been a good test taker, so I feel like everything up to this point, I've had like the worst anxiety and nerves, but like going in and being calm and just like reading stuff very like in depth, like it just makes everything, simpler. That's the only thing I worry about on the state exam is that they complicate things so much and make things so tricky for you to like second guess yourself. But I think with taking the course test and having all that information and being able to like go back to it is going to be like the best reference book. Like it's almost like a textbook in itself without having like the real textbook. Yeah. So I just loved the course. It was so simple. It was very fast. It's straight to the point. And I think it really prepares you for everything you're gonna need besides the test, like career-wise, like the foundation of being able to work in whatever, field you want to take your license to. So yeah, I thank
Thank
you guys and I thank you very much. And you guys will hear from me and I'll be annoying for the rest of my career. So yeah, thank you so much.
Wow, she's very articulate. No, that was a great answer. They'll love to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, see, I really love the school, but they don't care what I think. They care what you think.
That's fun. No, I have to write my reviews. I just been busy studying, but as soon as I finish my exam, I'm like, let me go write my reviews and see how great it was, 10 out of 10. So I'll get back around to writing all my good paragraph reviews.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much, though. You have a good night. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Now that reminds me. Oh, hi, Carrie. Do you have anything to contribute? Mm.
Oh, sorry. All right. So hi. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you like for the one-on-one. I think like a lot of these courses, they're good, but then when you have the actual interaction like this, it's a step up. I don't think a lot of these type of courses offer that, so that's really nice to see. It gives you like it's just more personable and makes you feel like a little more optimistic. So I appreciate it.
Great. I'm glad. Yeah, what I like about this school is I like that they do it multimedia. Like it's got pictures and videos and voiceovers. And so like you can read it or you can listen to it or you can watch it or do all three, whatever you want to do. And then they have it in the 5 languages and everything. Another thing I want to point out to you that I like about this school, I think this school invented it. The ERM. Have people been using the exam readiness meter? Hi, Thomas. Talk to me.
Can you hear me or no? This is
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Computer. Yeah, no, I think that actually the exam readiness meter actually gave me some more confidence in terms of understanding if I was like correctly prepared. And also a lot of the practice exams that you provide. What I did was I went all through each chapter in that preparation section, and it allowed me to narrow down the units of study that I actually had to target to study. So what I don't feel like I was left kind of in the dark with that. So I really did appreciate that. And I'm a teacher. I'm a history teacher. And what I
Oh,
love
wow.
is the alignment that you guys do to the standards. So
What kind of history do you teach?
what's that?
What history do you teach?
Unfortunately, right now, U.S. history. So I have to be very, very mindful of how I.
No, not unfortunately. Shout out to U.S. history teachers that I passed my 8th grade regents and yeah, my 8th grade U.S. history that I took in high school and middle school. So shout out to the teachers.
Well,
that are
thank
teachers.
you. Well, the one thing I have said is that it would be awesome because the city is pushing towards CTE for students to have actual like work experience. There's so much crossover between real estate and actual practical implementations of history, like the Sherman Antitrust Act. I was teaching that while reading about that in the course. And you teach it for so long, you understand it at kind of an intellectual level, you understand it in relation to the stock market and business, but to really understand it in terms of like price fixing, like you can't discuss commissions and things like that, I find fascinating. Or even like I could just have like an entire Q&A on like fiefdoms and the etymology of all of these terms and how far back they go.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Really, really super interesting. And I think kind of like your personality and I jive with it. I just get it. I understand it. And I love it because you hit on a lot of those points, like those kernels of interest that really help you remember the information. So I do think that, this really exceeded what I thought because I'm on a co-op board as well. I guess jack of all trades, master of none at this point. But I just find it so, I don't know, just it's enriching. And so I do appreciate the course, and I don't think I could have chosen anything better. So I do appreciate it.
Someone just commented, Carrie just commented, I'll get to you in 1 second, Michelle. Carrie just commented that she thinks visually, which most students say they do. And she said that she has attention deficit, and most students have that. So I try to teach the course. I just assume everybody has attention deficit syndrome. And I just teach it that way. I try to keep
I
jumping
love
around it.
that.
I
I love
try
that.
to make every slide be like a surprise
Yeah,
that
it
you're not
is.
expecting.
Some of your pictures, there's a couple, I'm like, where did these come from?
You know, I used to feel like the long videos, I used to be like, oh, I'm in for something in this one. Like if it's a lecture more than like 10 minutes, I used to be like, oh, this one's gonna be something. This one's
I
gonna be
see a lot of
something.
pictures of my old neighborhood that I hope to move back to.
Aw.
So
So,
where's Michelle?
All right. Well, I just want to say that it's been a pleasure taking this course. I'm actually considering a full-on career change, and medical school is not an option at this point, coming out with possible, I don't have the science credits, so I have to do a bachelor's again, plus the graduate. So I'm looking at 13 years and I'm a midlife career changer. So I'm looking to get out of a burnout situation in 25 years in tech and start something new. And I'm going to go full time with the brokerage. And I'm linked up with one already. And pending my passing of the school test and then the state licensing test, I will be working full time with them.
Great.
Congratulations.
So the course worked out well for you, you said?
It's fantastic, yeah. And the version I have is audio, so it's videos and audios. I'm reading along. I download the notes and I read it again, especially the math portions of it. So I'm understanding the math, and hope I just pass the test because I've taken like Salesforce administrator tests and anything that we learned, including the one-on-one conversation, none of that's on the test. So I
Just really
think
quick, not to interrupt, but the exam readiness meter was within 1 point of what my actual final exam score was. So
That's true.
it was
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
scarily accurate.
Yeah, I'm using that as well. And I'm going into the practice test too before I take the state test. Cause I'm on chapter I'm on the tax chapter now. So I think I have 2 more chapters after that.
You got
So
this. Don't worry.
planning to knock it out this week and take the state test probably by Monday. I'm not the state test, the school test on Monday, and then schedule the proctored exam. I'm in New York City, so I'm going to be going to the proctored place probably in Lower Manhattan. And I'm in Brooklyn. And then my region's probably going to be Brooklyn as well, where I'll be possibly renting and selling.
Well, I've been studying the exam readiness meter, and Thomas is absolutely right. It is incredibly accurate. Like students
I
really,
do have one constructive thing though for the course
oh, okay.
that you can tell them as a whole.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
you take the school course test and you get your score, they don't tell you what questions that you got wrong on the course.
Oh, I don't think they're
No,
allowed to. I
not
don't
at
think the
all. Like
government allows
even
it.
no, not like your state, your school course.
No,
Like
the
they
school,
yeah,
the
your
government
school course.
regulates us like you can't believe.
Really? Like they not
Yeah,
tell you what question? Yeah, so you can see what questions you might have missed on your school
not
course.
allowed
So
to.
just take that in mind that you have to think like, hey, what might have tricked me back? Because you're not gonna be able to see it. But that's
Yeah.
the only tip I would give you after taking the test of the school course.
Uh-huh.
And this
Sometimes
state
people,
test is a pass fail, or are they going to give you a grade?
the
Yeah,
state
just
has
pass
fail.
fail, pass.
Oh, so you don't even know if you got a 90 or a 70.
No, we only know at the school.
Oh, what a bummer.
Do you
How
know how
quickly-
long it takes
That's
for
canola.
the
90 minutes.
Oh, look at the doggy. I love dogs. So
Do you know how long it takes
What
to
is
get
that
the
baby? Is
actual
that a Jack
result?
Russell?
That's the rat terrier, one of them.
Oh, the rat terrier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What a cutie pie.
I think somebody had a question for you. We missed it.
Yeah.
A short question.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just wondering how long after you take the exam do you get the results?
About 2 or 3 days.
Okay, that's not too
Really?
bad.
The
Yeah.
state license. Oh, that's gonna give me so much nerves for 2, 3 days. I'm like,
And the only thing is, and again, like I don't want to start my career with a complaint here. The only thing that I think was like, again, teacher critique. When I first signed up for RELNY, I started getting all of these messages from different brokers and from different salespeople to try and join with them. And there was one, I can't remember their name. I don't want to call them out negatively, but I went through one of their like onboarding, like just kind of get to know you. And it really gave me a bad taste in my mouth as somebody who was entering the profession, because they immediately started talking about how AI is taking away everybody's jobs. And basically you would work for, it was almost some like automated thing. I left within 5 minutes because I'm like, this is clearly not worth my time. I don't think that's a RELNY problem necessarily, but just I don't know who all of these people are that are starting to like email me about who I am, like, hey, we might have a job. Like, I'm appreciative of it as somebody who has no connections, absolutely. But I want to know like how durable those connections truly are, or do they just like kind of like a fishnet take everybody and you're kind of just run through a meat grinder? Because I do think a lot of people who take these courses, especially like for me, for example, I would love like real mentorship and like really to be brought on. And I know that's not, you know, as easy as that sounds, but just making sure that those connections that the company has with some of these vendors is real.
Right.
Yeah, I
You know
was
what I
getting
think you
that
should
too.
do? I think you should inform Deb. Because like this RELNY really wants feedback, and they want to make sure that, you know, the schools that they have contact with are doing the right thing and are really good school, not schools, I mean brokerages.
Yeah, and the person who I
Contact
spoke
with,
with
so
when I spoke with her the first time was kind of like, I get it, like you're New York City, like I'm a New York City teacher, I'm in the area, I get it, but was very almost like too gruff to just be talking to somebody who's just going through the process of getting their license. So I can find their name and I can email it like on the side to you.
yeah, I think Deb would want to know.
Yeah, but I was just like incredibly turned off by it. But I don't take that as a reflection of you guys. And I'm being very honest with that.
Yeah.
But it's just like making sure you guys are actually like vetting who these people are. Anyway,
Yeah, I was
helpful
also
to us.
scared too because I was getting a ton of emails and I was like, well, how'd you get my number? And I figured they got it through the school. But then I got a good feeling on one of them and I wasn't too sure. I talked to the guy on a face-to-face, so I got to see him and talk to him, you know, like on a Zoom. So I'm already in their training program and it ends on Thursday. I've had started on Monday. They're waiting for me to sign on to them. Their terms, I read through their contract word for word. And normally I don't read contracts, but no, I read this one word for word. And right now it's gonna be 50-50 split, but if you go over 20,000, they'll by
Yeah,
5%.
that's very common.
Yeah, and it's a small startup fee, and that includes business cards, pictures, and then they're gonna make you sign up for either RE, RB and NY, or what's the other one? 1 point.
Oh, Revenue or
Uh,
National Association of Realtors?
Yeah. Yeah, there's two of them. One is for like New York City and one is for like Long Island and Westchester.
Yeah, yeah. Long Island is LIBOR, and then upstate New York, I think it's, oh golly, I forget the name of it in like Rockland County. I forget the name. Like
Yes.
there's Hagar or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would definitely be joining one, if not two of them. And they said you have to get a license. They would have to get a license for me. But they already showed me their like you know, way to get listings. There, if I contribute my pictures, I get points, and then I can add listings. You know, they're letting us use their database. They're excited to have me on. I can't wait to get on, and I'm hoping I can do it within the, you know, the first week of March. Just jump on this.
You know what's really good about NYSAR? That's New York State Association of Realtors. They're part of National Association of Realtors. They have a guy in Albany who's a lawyer, and it's a legal hotline. And if you run into a legal question, you can call him.
Yeah, and they already linked me with somebody in Brooklyn who's going to be my mentor, and I would be working out of his office. So I already talked to him on the phone, and I'm going to have lunch with him next week. So
Great.
yeah, it's moving fast, and I'm more than ever now just to jump head first because this guy's expensive and he's running up my credit card and doesn't pay.
Kristen, I'm sending you the name of the person. I just saw it in the direct message to the chat. Nobody else is going to see it but you.
Okay, very good. Got it. Do you remember the name of the brokerage? Because I don't know that person.
It's associated with the name.
Oh, okay. All right, very good.
I had one brokerage and we did not talk on the phone, just by email, asking me for a resume already. And I said, I'm still taking the course. I don't have a resume. But then he asked me for my current resume, which is email developer, front end developer, web development. And I'm trying to get away from it. And it's true, if you're not an AI 3 years ago, you're already late to the party. So, you know, being a software engineer is not my, I'm just burned from it.
When they ask for a resume, though, they're not trying to say, well, we want you to continue doing what you were doing. They want to get an idea of, well, first of all, they want to see like how well organized you are, like if you organize your resume well, because that tells what kind of presentation skills you're going to have with clients and customers.
Right.
But they also just want to know, like, people who have had like 9 to 5 jobs that, oh, this person has discipline, this person has been supervised before.
Oh,
Those are the kinds of things they want to see. They're not trying to pigeonhole you and keep you in the same career path you were on.
okay, because I got a little nervous when they asked for resumes, so I was like,
Yeah,
you
don't
know,
feel bad.
I don't know where to go. But I'm looking forward to meeting the mentor and then seeing what I can do with him and then rocking and rolling with it and um hope it works out for me. I can't see how it doesn't. My cousin is broker and he just made Westchester top dude. So
Ooh.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm being silent because that gives people a chance to jump in if they want to say something. I think everybody has pretty much said what they want to say. So if you gave me your email once, that's all you have to do. Okay? So if you gave me your email once, then you will be receiving a transcript. If you forgot to give me your email, you can still do it now. Now, when is the next webinar? I do webinars on the third Wednesday of every month, but they record the webinars. And so they have a backlog of ones. So you can ask Deb what you have to do if you want to look at some of my old ones. Because I've been doing them for like, I don't know, a year or two now. So that there's a lot of them in the can. Oh, yeah, I think after your course expires, it's expired. But while you're a student, I think you might be allowed to see them. I don't know about that administrative stuff because all I do is, write the courses. Um, I don't do any of the administrative stuff. So that's something that you could ask Deb about. Uh, yeah, chapter 16 is a monster. Chapter 16 is 10 hours long and it's got tons of math. What you could do, Daisy, is when you come to the next webinar with me, you can say to me, Kristen, would you please do the commercial chapter? Do stuff from the commercial chapter because I take requests all day long. Okay. Good night, Carrie.
Have a good night. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. Good night.
All right. Well, my dog has woken up. I don't know how she does it, but she somehow always knows when the class is ending. Maybe my voice changes or something when the class ends. I don't know. But she has figured out that the class is over. So,
Well, thank
uh,
you so much for this live talk and especially going over the math because I'm putting the answers in the chat and I'm hoping I'm right. And then normally I'm not this active on a webinar like this. So
yeah, you got everything right.
oh,
You
I'm
got
so
the answers right.
yeah, thank you so much because the class has been wonderful and I just love the course. I know it does expire at some point, but I really just love the content of it and I'm doing the practice tests and I'm trying to do it once so that it records the score uniquely just to see where I need to go back and read and review. But I'm looking forward to just finishing it this week and then taking the school test this week and then hopefully be working in March.
Great. And oh, you know what? I should give everybody, and I will put this in the transcript, so the people who left are going to get it also. But I should give you my email address in case people want to ask me a question, or you want to write me and tell me what happened when you took the state test, You don't have to tell me, your score, just tell me how you felt about it. What the experience was like.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I will do that. I have to run because these boys have to go for a walk in the cold and they need their
Me
sweaters.
too.
But it's been a pleasure meeting you, and maybe I get to, are you located in New York City?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm in Manhattan. Uh-huh.
Oh, Manhattan. All
Yeah.
right, cool. So maybe we run into each other at some point.
Yeah. Well, you'll definitely, nobody ever recognizes me, but they recognize the dog.
Yeah. But thank you so much, and I'll just let you know if I pass or fail the test. Have a great night.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, good
bye-bye.
night, everybody. Good night. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.